Okay, we're in volume 4 of the Bible story of these 70-year-old books that I got. Okay, part 1, story 4, the tale of 3 arrows. That's what it says. David might have fled to his home in Bethlehem and talked to his father and mother, but he didn't. He wanted to see the man of God who had anointed him. Life had become such a muddle. What's that muddle? He had tried so hard to do right, and now all the trouble had come. Now all this trouble had come to him. He wondered why and what he should do next. So David fled and escaped and came to Samuel in Ramah and told him all that Saul had done to him. It is a long story of David. It was a long story David had to tell, and Saul must have been very disappointed in the way the king had treated this fine young man who had done so much for Israel. Just what Saul said to David, we don't know, but we can be sure he told him to be patient and trust God to work everything out right in the end. Work everything out right in the end. Okay. Not long after this, David met Jonathan again. They were so glad to see each other, and David said, "What have I done? What is mine iniquity? And what is my sin before thy father, that he seeketh my life?" King James again. He didn't understand why Saul would want to kill his own son-in-law. Jonathan told him not to worry. He would let David know in good time if there was any real danger. But David was greatly troubled. "Truly, as the Lord liveth," he said, there is but a step between me and death." Then he told what was worrying him now. He would soon be okay. Then he told what was worrying him now. It would soon be time for the feast of the new moon, when the king expected everybody to be present. Maybe Saul would miss him and maybe he wouldn't. Yet he didn't dare go, not as things were now. So he asked Jonathan to let him know what happened. Jonathan promised to do so because he loved him, for he loved him as he loved his own soul. They were the best of friends. Then they had a plan. David was to hide in a certain place near a field they knew very well. Then, after the feast, Jonathan would come to the field and shoot 3 arrows, and say to his arrow boy, "Go find out the arrows." If I if he called to the boy, "The arrows are on this side of thee," then David knows that all is well, and that the king had gotten over his fit of rage. But if he called to the boy, "The arrows are beyond thee," then David would know that the king is still angry and he had better stay away. Well, the feast began, and David's place was empty. Saul said nothing about it the first day, but on the second day, show you the illustration down at the bottom. See the empty chair? It's supposed to be for David. Okay. He turned to Jonathan and asked where David was. Wherefore cometh not the son of Jesse to meet, neither yesterday nor today? He said. He might have guessed, if he had stopped to think of how badly he treated David a little while before, but he didn't. In other words, he forgot. So Jonathan made up an excuse that David wanted to go to see his family in Bethlehem. At once, Saul suspected that the two young men had fixed this up together. Thou perverse rebel, he yelled at Jonathan in front of everybody. As long as the son of Jesse liveth upon the ground, thou shalt not be established, nor thy kingdom. Wherefore now send and fetch him to me, for he shall surely die. Now Jonathan was angry. Wherefore shall he be slain? He cried. What hath he done? A lot of King James to give the emphasis of the story. Trembling in rage, Saul seized his javelin and threw it at his son. But his aim was bad, and Jonathan left the table in fierce anger. Early the next morning, when he went to the field with his arrow boy, fitting an arrow in his bow, he said to the lad, "Run, find out now the arrow which I shoot." And the boy obeyed. When the lad came to the place where the arrow had stuck in the ground, Jonathan called aloud, so that David could hear him. "Is not the arrow beyond thee?" Then again to the boy, but really to David, he called, "Make speed haste, stay not." The arrow boy picked up the 3 arrows and returned. Jonathan then handed him the bow and sent him back to the city. When the boy was out of sight, David came out of his hiding place, and Jonathan told him all that had happened. And they kissed each other, and they cried, and they wept. "The Lord be between thee and me, and between my seed and thy seed forever," said Jonathan as the tears rolled down his cheeks. It was a sad parting. Both knew it would be a long time before they would meet again. And then, of course, it has a picture of Jonathan shooting the arrow. Give me a second. It's a 2-pager. And give me a second so I can see that it's in frame. There we go. It's 2-pager. And then make sure it's in frame. Okay. And that was part 1, story 4. Okay, we're going to break, or I'm going to break, and then we're going to go to the next one. And I guess this part of the Bible, it's more about David anyway. But you'll see here in a second. I'll be back in a bit.